Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge right into complex events and pull out the insights that really matter for you. Today, we're focusing on something truly critical and sadly tragic. The Air India flight AI-171 crash. It happened in Ahmedabad, India, back on June 12, 2025. Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack the immediate facts around this devastating incident. We want to understand the profound human impact and explore those crucial first steps in the investigation. It's already being called India's deadliest crash since 1996. We've gathered a lot of detail from our source material, and we're ready to walk you through it.
Yeah, and in situations like this, it's so easy to get lost in all the information flooding in, isn't it? So our goal for you today is really to cut through that noise. We want to connect the dots, link those initial reports to the bigger picture, and really highlight what's genuinely important for understanding such a complex and, yes, tragic event. We want you to finish listening feeling well-informed with a clear, sort of nuanced picture of what happened, who it affected, and crucially, how that search for answers is moving forward.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So the core details. Air India flight AI-171, it was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, and it was heading for London Gatwick. Now, the sequence of events right after takeoff, well, it was terrifyingly fast. The plane crashed just 36 seconds after lifting off from Ahmedabad Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. The time was exactly 1:39 p.m. local. And the detail that just jumps out immediately is Captain Sumit Sabharwal's Mayday call. It was urgent, signaling trouble almost the instant they were airborne. It really paints a picture of incredibly rapid failure.
It really does. And the technical details we have about that incredibly brief flight, they just underscore how little time there actually was. The aircraft only reached a maximum altitude of 625 feet. Now, that's remarkably low for a jet just after takeoff. And then it began this rapid, irreversible descent, 475 feet per minute. It ultimately hit a medical college hostel in the Nagar residential area and burst into flames. This specific altitude, this rate of descent, it's incredibly telling for the investigators. It points strongly towards a catastrophic failure, something that left basically no time for the crew to intervene. So it immediately shifts the focus away from, say, minor mechanical issues or slow burn human error towards things like, well, catastrophic structural failure or maybe simultaneous power loss, something that could cause such an immediate unrecoverable situation.
And amidst all that devastation, which is just hard to imagine, there's one detail that really stands out. Offers our guests survivor. Tell us about Vishwash Kumar Ramesh.
Yes, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. He's a 40-year-old British national of Indian origin. And somehow, incredibly, he managed to escape through an emergency exit, with injuries described as non-critical. He himself called his survival a miracle. And you can understand why that one person surviving amidst such total loss. It really brings home the incredible odds, the sheer randomness almost of survival in these kinds of high-impact events.
Turning now to the devastating human impact of this tragedy is staggering. The plane was carrying 242 people in total. That breaks down to 230 passengers and 12 crew members. And the sources give us the nationalities, which helps paint a picture of just how global this loss is. 169 Indian nationals, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian citizen.
And the full scale is, well, it's truly heartbreaking. All 241 people on the aircraft lost their lives. Plus, tragically, at least 33 people on the ground were killed where the plane impacted. So that brings the total confirmed deaths to at least 274. And like you said, this isn't just a number, a statistic. This is a deeply, deeply felt loss for countless families, communities spanning multiple countries. The ripple effect is just immense.
Yeah, it really is. And the sources, they also highlight some of the specific victims, which brings an even more personal touch, I think, to this collective grief. We know that among those lost were medical students, former Chief Minister of Gujarat, Vijay Rupani, and also crew members like the co-pilot Clive Kunder. These are real people, with lives, with stories just abruptly ended. It helps us remember the human cost beyond just the numbers.
Absolutely. And the process of identifying the victims, that's been a huge and critical effort conducted under unimaginable pressure. DNA testing was, of course, crucial. They successfully identified 210 victims through that method. And by June 21st, 187 bodies have been released to their grieving families. It's just a painstaking process, requires incredible scientific work and, well, compassion, too. In terms of support, Air India's owner, the Tata Group, they pledged 1 crore rupees, that's about $116,000 US per victim's family. They also committed to covering medical expenses for the injured, like Mr. Ramesh. And significantly, India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, he personally visited the crash site and also met with the survivor. That really underscores the national and international gravity of this tragedy.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to the aircraft itself. That's always a critical piece of the puzzle in any crash investigation, isn't it? This was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, a relatively modern wide-body jet. It was delivered new to Air India back in 2014, and at the time of the crash, it had logged over 41,000 flight hours. So what does the aircraft's history tell us? Is there anything there?
Well, what's really insightful, I think, is how the sources point to a clean engine history. That means basically no significant recurring engine problems were previously reported for this specific airframe. And what's more, it had recent maintenance. The right engine was overhauled just in March 2025. The left engine was inspected in April. Now, this acts as a really crucial filter for the investigators. It means they can likely discount, years of slow cumulative wear and tear. Instead, they can focus much more intensely on sudden, acute failures or perhaps external factors that could emerge so incredibly rapidly right after takeoff. It points away from a gradual deterioration that might have been missed during maintenance.
Right. So if you have a plane, recent maintenance, clean history, and then this catastrophic failure just seconds after takeoff, does that pretty much rule out something like a slow engine degradation? It sounds like it had to be something far more sudden.
Exactly. That's precisely why the speed, those 36 seconds, is so critical here. It strongly suggests a sudden acute event, not a slowly developing problem. And that really sharpens the investigative focus, making the data from those black boxes absolutely vital for understanding those critical 36 seconds of flight.
Okay, so with such a rapid, devastating event, the focus immediately turns to finding out why. And for any crash investigation, getting those black boxes is paramount. In this case, both the flight data recorder, the FDR, and the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, they were both recovered from the wreckage. That's good news, right? What's their status?
It is good news they were found, yes. But there's a significant detail. The FDR, the flight data recorder, sustained some damage in the impact and fire. This means it might require specialized analysis, possibly even needing to be sent to the U.S. for data extraction. It just highlights the complexity and also the extensive international collaboration that's pretty standard in these high-stakes probes. Because ultimately, those black boxes hold the definitive key, really, to understanding the plane's performance, the crew's actions, their communications, right up to the moment of impact. It's the closest we can possibly get to being in that cockpit.
And it really is a massive global effort underway. India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the AAIB, they're leading the probe. But they've got vital assistance already pouring in from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, investigators from the UK, plus representatives from Boeing who made the plane, and GE Aerospace who supplied the engines. So what initial areas are these expert teams really zeroing in on?
Well, based on the immediate evidence, the short flight, the location, the wreckage, and standard protocols, investigators are focusing on a few key initial areas. These include, naturally, potential engine failure, despite the clean history, it has to be looked at, issues with wing flaps or landing gear, something that might have prevented stable flight right after rotation, and of course, the possibility of human error is always considered. So, maintenance records, pilot training logs, all of that is under intense scrutiny, as it always is. And according to international aviation rules, ICAO rules specifically, we should expect a preliminary report within 30 days of the crash. This structured approach, it helps ensure thoroughness, and it aims to provide some initial findings, hopefully preventing too much speculation before we have concrete data.
Okay, so stepping back from the immediate crash site and the technical investigation, what does this all mean in broad? Let's start with the government's response. The Indian government moved quickly, forming a high-level committee. Their job isn't just to investigate this specific crash, but also to recommend wider safety measures, presumably to prevent anything like this happening again.
Exactly. And we've seen some rapid systemic actions already taking place. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation, that's India's main aviation regulator, they immediately ordered additional checks on Air India's entire fleet of 33 Boeing 787s. And by June 19th, just a week after the crash, 26 of those planes had already been inspected and cleared. That shows a very rapid, pretty comprehensive response aimed at ensuring the safety of similar aircraft in the fleet. It reflects, I think, a proactive approach to heading off potential systemic issues.
And Air India itself, what was their response? Well, they also reacted quickly, cutting their international wide-body flights by about 15% until mid-July. That presumably allows time for these extra safety checks, maybe some operational adjustments too. It suggests they're prioritizing safety over immediate flight schedules and revenue.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources we looked at do reveal that Air India has faced some prior criticism regarding safety lapses. This includes documented instances, for example, of overdue emergency equipment checks on some of their Airbus aircraft, a different fleet type, but still. Now, this historical context from the sources, it sort of transforms the investigation, doesn't it? It goes from just being about a singular potential mechanical failure on this one flight to potentially a broader audit of systemic issues. It forces investigators to ask not just what went wrong on AI-171, but why lapses might occur within Air India's overall safety culture and oversight. That's a really critical distinction, and one that could influence future aviation policy in India.
Right. And of course, in the immediate aftermath of any major event like this, especially these days, public speculation just runs wild. You see it all over platforms like X or Twitter, as it was. We saw posts speculating about, well, everything, engine failure, maybe stuck landing gear, even miscalculations by the pilots. It's just so important to emphasize, though, that these are, at this stage, unconfirmed theories. They're part of that initial noise that investigators have to painstakingly filter through to get to the actual facts. It really underscores the challenge of getting accurate information out quickly in a crisis.
Absolutely. And another crucial detail emerged related to broader safety concerns, actually extending beyond the aircraft itself. Concerns about airport safety were raised. Some observers pointed to a 6-story building located near the takeoff path as a potential hazard. Now, whether it played a role or not is for the investigation, but it broadens the scope beyond just mechanical or human factors on the plane. It brings in infrastructure, environmental considerations, things that might have played a part and maybe just exacerbated the outcome. It's almost always a chain of events, rarely just one single thing.
So we've navigated through the immediate aftermath, the terrible human cost, and the initial stages of what is undoubtedly a critical investigation. This deep dive, I think, has really shown us the profound human impact of an event like this, the incredibly intricate, painstaking process involved in determining the causes of a crash, and also the swift, yet extremely challenging, responses from the authorities and the airline involved.
Yeah, and as this investigation continues to unfold over the coming weeks and months, that complex interplay, human factors, mechanical performance, environmental conditions, all of it will be meticulously examined. And the data from that damaged flight data recorder, from the cockpit voice recorder, that will be absolutely crucial in painting the clearest possible picture of what happened in those final fatal moments, hopefully providing insights that can help prevent future tragedies.
So this deep dive leaves you with a thought to ponder. In this age of constant information, sometimes misinformation, how do you discern credible insight from just speculation? Especially when tragic events like this demand clear, evidence-based answers to ensure safety going forward. If you were on that investigation team, tasked with uncovering the truth of Flight AI-171, what specific